Ladies and gentlemen, join me please in welcoming David Parmenter to present to us the way to find the KPIs that will, when monitored, transform our businesses. David.
Thank you very much, Quan, for those kind words. We're facing, everybody, a revolution in performance management. What is happening today is companies around the world are recognizing the significance of measuring activity through KPIs. I was very lucky to meet some people, and I was gifted by a person the term winning KPIs, and I've run with it ever since. This revolution is on a three-pronged attack. We want to measure performance better. We want to report it on a timely basis. We have organizations, leading companies here in Malaysia that are trying to survive in a rapidly changing climate, and yet the CEO is getting information well and truly after the horse is bolted. Quite frankly, it's not good enough. And I'm on a mission to support the CEOs by working with the accountants to transform the way we report. We want, for example, to report daily, weekly information. I would like a CEO to know by day one of the following month, without seeing any paperwork, what the bottom line is. In other words, we can manage our business by getting decision-based information during the month. It is critical. Accountants nowadays, and there will be some accountants here in Malaysia, are producing financial results by day one. In America, they're even a step ahead. We have a thing called virtual reporting. In other words, at any time, at any point of the month, you can get full accrual accounting done, net profit figure. So that's the second part. The third part is the throwing out of the annual planning process. Julius Caesar, when he conquered Europe, used to have an annual plan, and for him it was very useful. Julius Caesar could actually, with a certain degree of predictability, know that he was going to go into this battle and win. In fact, Julius Caesar won every war he went into, only lost one battle. For us, though, the annual planning process creates many problems for us. We spend 3 months, do we not? 3 months planning what we're going to do next year, only to find, before even the first day of the year, that the plan is totally inappropriate. It's either too hard, too soft. Worst of all, we then break the annual plan into monthly targets, and we have a situation where budget holders have to report against progress, against the target, and in fact, I could write their report for them in New Zealand. In fact, I could start a business writing their monthly reports, because all we need to say, it's a timing difference, don't we? It's a timing difference. Yeah. So we've got to work with these three areas, and I'm focusing on the first one, KPIs. The second one, as I mentioned before, was timely reporting, both during the month and very soon afterwards. And thirdly, removal of the annual planning process. When you remove the annual planning process, you replace it with a thing called quarterly rolling planning, and I'm very happy to field some questions during question time, and please do feel free to write the questions as I'm speaking, because with the green cards, they can flow this way, and we can get a very good proactive question and answer session. Quarterly rolling planning, I have presented on a website called www.bettermanagement.com. You can go to that and you can listen to a 45-minute audio and get a white paper about it. It is the way forward. I can say to you here that it is not a question of if your company will go down this route, it's a question of when. And I hope that I will convince you today that you as a CEO will make that stride and make it your stride to go forward, especially with the KPI work, and leave it as a lasting legacy in your organization. I want to talk about a couple of stories. The first story is about a British Airways, and in fact this is the very story that got me on this journey that I'm currently on now. I read an article, I happened to be on a tube, and the Financial Times was lying on a seat, and as you all know, you always find more interesting articles in a paper that you haven't bought. And there, this 600-word article was about how Lord King transformed a company. Transformed a company by focusing on one performance measure. I'll repeat that, one performance measure. Many of you here will have 100, 200, and if you're really unlucky, 300 performance measures. In fact, we're buried in them. And of course, we lack focus, and there's a total lack of linkage between what the staff are doing to the strategic objectives. So let's go back to this story. Lord King asked a firm of consultants to help him sort out the company. A brilliant man, he knew that he couldn't focus on too many things, and he said, find me the couple of measures that I need to go on. They came back a couple of months later, having clocked up a few $100 grand, and that's in pounds, of course. And they said to Lord King, you need to focus in one area of your business called a critical success factor. And Lord King said, pray tell me what that is. And he said, it's a timely arrival and departure of aeroplanes. Lord King, as any member of the airline industry would say, I am not impressed. Ah, they said, Lord King, you have known for a long time it's important to you, but what you didn't know, it was right at the top of the tree. And that I urge you, all of you here, is whilst you all know as chief executives what your critical success factors are, very few of us have actually gone down the route of working out where the hierarchy lie. Because once you do that, you will find the top critical success factors are where you should start digging for your KPIs. Does that make sense? In other words, they'll give you focus. So Lord King said, what measure should I focus on? And they said, Lord King, late planes in the air. So they came up with a system where Lord King, wherever he was in the world, would look on a screen, and the late planes would be there. And he could see the whole story. What time the plane arrived in late, and what happened, and a bit of a history. So let's talk about Pat Carruthers. Pat is the airport manager at Kennedy Airport. Now, Pat has been responsible for the airport for some time, and his team have been having late planes sent over from Los Angeles. And of course, like in many companies, that's not my problem. That's the problem of the other division. They've created this problem, we're not wearing it. And so this dysfunctional behavior was happening. So what now happened was a late plane that was, say, an hour and a half late, we managed to lose one passenger, maybe an elderly passenger in the duty-free. Well, and this happens, as we know. And so the plane clocked over the 2 hours, and Lord King would make the phone call. And as the story goes, Lord King, of course, could be anywhere. He could be enjoying himself in this great country, in Malaysia. He could be in Sabah, as I have been, in that magnificent state of yours, enjoying the waters there. And he would be there at 2 o'clock, and of course it'd be a very unhealthy time in New York. And he would make the phone call. And so it was a bedtime phone call received by this airport manager. And it was like a career-limiting phone call, in other words. You had one of these phone calls and you knew that it wasn't a good idea to repeat it. And Lord King would ask, what happened to this plane? And so the airport manager would say, well, Los Angeles created the problem, and we unfortunately had one passenger that got lost. And Lord King said, well, actually, it's frankly not good enough. You know full well that these things happen. You should have made every effort to have brought that plane back on time, even though it wasn't your own making. And in fact, have I made it clear that I don't really want to be ringing you tomorrow about this? Lord King, I'll make sure that you don't have to phone me again. So Pat would go, he or she would go into the office and explain the story, and there would be open mouths in the meeting. And Pat would say, by the way, what's on the screen at the moment? And they'd look up there and they'd see, yep, another 3 planes coming in late. So Pat said, look, this cannot happen. We cannot get one of these planes over 2 hours, or I'm going to get a phone call. So he said, what should we do? So the staff started to brainstorm. And so they thought of many ideas. One was, let's talk to traffic control. Let's flick them a couple of tickets to the latest baseball game to bring that plane in instead of circling around Kennedy Airport. Somebody said, why don't we talk to our oil company, maybe BP or Shell, and say, why, if we tell you which are our important planes, could you make sure the tankers there are ready? And they thought, what a great idea. Why don't we, in fact, communicate with our supplier even better by giving them online access to this screen that we've got? Great idea. And another person said, well, the cleaners. You know, when a plane comes in, it takes us about 20 minutes to clean the plane. So why don't we speed this up? In fact, that sort of leads me to another story. There was this airline, and they were looking at speeding up the processes. So they said to them, who should we talk to about speeding up how we turn around a plane? So they thought about it. One clever spark said, well, the quickest team